Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. If you're new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel and like the video. And if you're one of the OG original subscribers, loyal subscribers, please, you know what to do. Hit the like button and of course share the vid as well and comment. Go for it. Let me know what you think. Okay, let's go straight into this. India versus England, the first ODI in Pune, not Pune, according to commentators. And India completely destroyed England in this, really. In the end, anyway, it's a topsy-turvy rollercoaster match for, let's say, 2/3 of it, and then next thing you know, India just went into overdrive and completely destroyed India in the end. Unbelievable stuff from India's bowlers, especially in that second half of the innings. Before we go into that, though, I want to go into the lineups very briefly. I guess the biggest surprises on the Indian front was KL Rahul making sure that he consolidated his place in the ODI side, considering he's been in a very, very terrible. Well, he's just been in very terrible form, hasn't he? He's just been absolutely shocking form in the T20s, especially. On the ODIs, though, he has an average of 46, 47, and they were just looking at him thinking, you know what, we're going to trust you. They also brought in Krunal Pandya, the elder bro of Hardik Pandya, so the Pandya brothers versus the Karan brothers was on today. And we also had Prasidh Krishna making his debut as well. Pretty exciting bowler, bowling upwards of 145 Ks. So very, very nippy. And he did bowl some wheels today, to be fair. He really did. And I guess the other surprise inclusion was Kuldeep Yadav, who has been in and out of the side. Well, I say more out than in, hasn't he? He hasn't played a single game apart from that one test match against England where he hardly bowled any overs. Apart from that, he's just been the forgotten man for a large majority and portion of time. I mean, yeah, I think he's actually not even playing regularly for his domestic side at the moment because of Chakravarti. So, yeah, anyway, he had a point to prove coming into this as well. Apart from that, pretty standard team. On the England front, you had Ben Stokes coming in at 3. Pretty big surprise there, although I think it was expected considering no Joe Root as he's at home. And yeah, I mean, they could have gone with Liam Livingstone, which probably would have been my choice. I would have liked to have seen what he could have done. I would have actually liked to have seen Dawid Malan there as well, to be honest with you. But he's a reserve player, so yeah, it's very interesting and very weird. He's only played one ODI, Dawid Malan, and obviously he's played quite a few T20s and also Test matches. So, but it is what it is. Ben Stokes was in there as an experiment, and also came back in Sam Billings after not playing a single match on this tour so far. He came in, and as did Moeen Ali, who's only played one match so far. Both pretty rusty coming in, as you can imagine, but they came in, and the Curran brothers, as I said, were in there as well. No Reece Topley, who I thought may start, but they didn't go with him. They stuck with the old faithful of the Curran brothers, Adil Rashid and Mark Wood, and obviously Moeen Ali and Ben Stokes backing up those four. Okay, let's go straight into the Indian innings then, because Rohit Sharma and Shikha Darwin, the old reliable pair of Sharma and Darwin, opened up for India, and they just went with this very, very just typical Indian approach, really, that they've utilized over the last few years, which is we're going to be slow and steady at the start. In the first 10, we don't want to lose a wicket in the power play, and then we'll build a platform, and the guys lower down can come in and they can score quickly, but we don't need to particularly. We just need to make sure we don't lose our wicket. Whereas England, on the other hand, have a completely different method and methodology even, which is Roy and Bairstow come out and they just whack it everyone in the first 10, and they really try to put pressure on the bowlers straight away in that power play. Which one is better? Well, in this case, obviously India went on to win, but I would say the approach from England is probably the more modern way. I think India's method is a little bit dated, but with the kind of plethora of talent they have, they can get away with it, I think, if I'm being honest with you. However, given the plethora of talent they have, you'd think that they would actually utilize a more, not gung-ho, but a more aggressive approach to the game. I mean, someone like Rohit Sharma only scored 28 out of 42, strike rate of 67. He was a little bit disappointing for me. Took a long way to get going, and then obviously just wafting at one wide from Stokes didn't really need to. Either should have gone for 4, really. It was short and wide. It's bread and butter for him, or just leave it. Anyway, so he ended up going 28 or 42, and they were 64 for 1 or 50 no's at that point. So they're going at around 4 and over, which is okay. Whereas on the flip side, England would be looking to go, which they did around would be 7-8 mark, right, per over, which is crazy to think about. But the one thing that I was very impressed with is Shikha Darwin, 98 of 106, and he obviously, whilst Rohit Sharma didn't come up with the goods, potentially one of the best ODI players ever, Rohit Sharma, Shikha Darwin, they just picked up the slack, and I think he's probably quite underrated in this format because I feel like this format is almost a sweet spot for him. Is that 90 to 100 strike rate is definitely a sweet spot that he is comfortable in. I think in T20 he feels a bit rushed. He didn't have a particularly good T20 series, and I think we can now safely say he's not a T20 player. However, what I can say is that he's a very good, established, experience in just. I mean, to be honest with you, he's one of the best ODI openers around, and that's just a fact. 98 of 106 for him, and he looks really impressive. Not particularly the best to watch, but he does the job, doesn't he? I think, and that's the most important thing. And really, India don't care how people are going to get runs as long as they get runs consistently, and he does. 11 fours and 2 sixes for him. The only issue with him that I have is as soon as he broke into the 90s, he was very, very conservative. He broke the rhythm of his batting, which at that point had started to become more and more aggressive, but in a very logical way because his eye was in, he was seeing the ball a lot better, and he was putting away the bad balls. And actually, it was just very clever batting from him. And his strike rate went from around 80, 85 to 90 plus, which, you know, is fantastic. And that should really be happening as you score more and more runs, right? Because you're more comfortable, you're seeing the ball better, etc. However, as I said, as soon as he got to the 90s, he kind of went into his own shell and just thought, you know what? I don't really need to keep on going at the same pace. I want to make sure I get 100. He broke the rhythm of his batting, unfortunately, and eventually it just came back to bite him in the butt, basically, because what happened is Ben Stokes bowled a shorter, kind of back of a length delivery, which usually Shikha Darwin would just pummel it to the boundary. I mean, perfectly honest with you, to the mid-wicket boundary, he would have pulled it away. It would have been easy pickings for him. But unfortunately, he was in two minds. I think the first part of his mind was saying to him, you know what, I need to sit here and defend this. I can just nurgle it for a single. And then the second part was, no, what am I doing? This is a gimme. And then next thing you know, he was caught in between two, chipped it straight to mid-wicket, and he had to go. And I think he smiled to himself because he realised maybe I should have just carried on. But who am I to say, right? Very good player. But I'm sure we will see him perform once again this series. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another couple of scores or one or two scores in the next two ODIs. Virat Kohli, the captain, obviously, we know how good he is. 56 off 60 and a strike rate of 93, 6 fours. He looked very comfortable, to be honest with you, whilst he was in. He didn't really look like he was going to be troubled. Rashid, there's obviously, well, it's been well documented that Rashid has had Kohli's number at a number of times, really, but this time it just wasn't to be. The spinners weren't really getting the grip and the turn that you'd expect from a flat, dryish wicket. It was really just sitting up quite nicely, and the seamers as well weren't really getting too much from it. So Shreyas Iyer was with him at one point as well. He had to go. He ended up going after Virat Kohli for only 6 runs as well. Virat Kohli's dismissal was interesting because on 56 and his eyes in, and he just thought, you know what, there's this length ball from Mark Wood, and it's a very uncharacteristic way. He went to just flick it for 6 the mid-wicket boundary, and I was just thinking, I'm not sure why he hadn't hit a 6 at that point. It's almost like he'd just gone into a bit of a frenzy almost. Like, he'll be a bit disappointed by it, but it was a very good knock and nearly a run of ball, and Moeen Ali clutching onto that after dropping one early doors from Shikha Darwin. So what I would say is, though, England's fielding on the whole was very, very good. I just think that drop from Moeen Ali proved to be a little bit costly. But apart from that, I thought the overall effort was fantastic from the fielders. Obviously, Billings hurting his shoulder while trying to dive didn't actually stop it. But that was very valiant. Also, you had Owen Morgan splitting the webbing in his hand, and they just dive around everywhere. And that's the modern game nowadays. And they are definitely a model of how to field, I think, in white ball cricket. Shreyas Iyer was a bit disappointing, as I said, 6 off 9, and just trying to flick one to into leg side, which was really something they should have just driven into the offside. Flicking it, went straight to backward point. Good catch from Liam Livingston running in. And the people that I want to touch upon, but I'll wait because I want to touch upon Hardik Pandya. Just gave a little bit of slip practice, didn't need to Bairstow. Out for 1 of 9. KL Rahul and Krunal. Oh, is it Krunal? No. KL Rahul and Krunal Pandya. These guys really put on a masterclass in how to bat in the last 10 overs. It was just fantastic to see. I mean, these guys put on an unbelievable partnership of 112 of 10 overs, the last 10, and it was just like, whoa. It was like watching just fireworks exploding everywhere. I think Dinesh Karthik said, look, if you hit a ball relatively cleanly, it's going to stay here. It's going to fly into the stands because of the altitude or whatever else it might be. I tell you what, they definitely did. KL Rahul, who, as we know, has been really struggling for form, really bad T20 series, doesn't matter, came into this game, first couple of balls looked a bit tetchy, and in the end, 62 or 43 for him. Not out as well, good Reninka, 4 fours, 4 sixes, 144 strike rate, and he just looked like a player reborn almost. And I'm sure this will put him in good stead for the rest of the series and also going forward now, because this type of knock is one that definitely is character building. He was struggling at the start, then he just got a couple of shots, I think, turned it for me. There's one from Mark Wood, which was on length, and he flicked it even for 6. And it's almost like what Virat Kohli tried to do, but he did this effectively, KL Rahul. And then he also pulled Sam Curran for 6, a flat pull, very, very good shot, sweetly timed. And after that, he just looked a lot more comfortable. And he was just in his element. Krunal Pandya, on the other hand, I mean, India just find these guys, don't they? I mean, Ishan Kishan, 50 on debut in the T20. Surya Kumar Yadav, 50 on debut. And Krunal Pandya, 50 on debut. It's like, you know what? You need a batsman to come in and give you runs. Here we go. And it's just unbelievable. They've got this strength and depth in the middle order. 58 of 31, 7 fours, 2 sixes, a strike rate of 187 as well. Unbelievable stuff from him. He was just super impressive for me. And they propelled India past that 300 mark to 317 for 5. And at this point, I think Dinesh Karthik, the commentators, even myself, I'm thinking, you know what? Okay, that's a pretty decent score in the end. I think they look like they might not even get 290. And these two have put on an absolute masterclass, gone at they've gone at nearly 12 and over in that last 10, and just fantastic batting from both. And you're just thinking, okay, but England's lineup, and I think Owen Morgan, the reason why he put India into bat first is because he's thinking in his mind, our batting lineup is a lot stronger than our bowling lineup. I'm going to back us to go and get that score no matter what it is. We're only really missing Joe Root. Obviously, they're missing Archer and Wokes as the openers, so they didn't have those two. Archer out with an injury and Wokes being rested. So he would have been going into the break thinking, we can chase this. It's a flat track as well. England are prime for chasing anything on a flat track, to be honest with you. They really are, especially with Jason Roy and Johnny Bairstow opening up. And you're just thinking, this is going to be a really, really good chase. And a lot of people would have been backing England, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. And who can blame them after the start that England had? I mean, Jason Roy and Johnny Bairstow put on an absolute clinic of how to bat in the power play. And I think this is something that India can learn from, and England can learn from how India batted in the middle overs. And I think if you combine it, then you have the perfect batting display, right? And you probably get 400. But Jason Roy and Johnny Bairstow put on 135 right after 14.2 overs. Unbelievable batting. I'm going to very, very briefly go into the differences between the two and why I'm going to mention it. Johnny Bairstow, for me, the best batsman amongst everyone who played in this ODI. 94 of 66, 6 fours, 7 sixes, a striker 142. He was in phenomenal touch. I'll touch upon him more in a little bit. Jason Roy, 46 of 35, 7 fours, 1 6, and a striker 130. Now, the reason why, for me, I think Jason Roy was not able to convert like Johnny Bairstow or go as big as Johnny Bairstow is a couple of reasons. And I think the commentators from Sky mentioned it. I want to very briefly touch upon it. He's almost gone into this mode, this T20 mode, which is it's a very reckless T20 mode where he completely loses his shape at times, and I would say 60% of the time, at least, his shape completely goes when he plays a shot. His hip just comes round, and he squares himself up, or he cramps himself a room. He kind of oversteps with his front foot. Everything just seems to be very, very awkward the way that he plays at the moment. And it's funny because I remember seeing him play for Surrey whilst he was coming up, and he wasn't like that. Yes, he was a very big hitter. Yes, he had power, but he was actually a very kind of attractive player to watch in the sense that the strokes that he'd play anyone would enjoy watching them, right? The drives, the flicks, everything. He still has some of that. And he still has it in the locker, clearly. He's just gone with, I want to play with fast hands, hit the ball as hard as I can, and you know what, it's going to fly off, it doesn't matter. And for me, that's fine. In T20s, you can kind of get away with it. And I think the commentators allude to that, but here you can't. And we saw a couple of shots that showed a glimpse of what he's capable of. There was a drive down the ground for 4, really, really good shot. There's also a sweep of Krunal Prasidh, very, very good shot as well. But on the whole, he just looked, and it's crazy to say this because he went at a strike rate of 130 and he got 46 runs. And I don't want to be too critical, but I just think it's something that if he was to tweak it, he'll be getting 100 pretty easily and in no time. Sorry. And we were seeing him in this ridiculous form in a period, I remember, before the World Cup as well, during the World Cup. He's a phenomenal player. He really is. And I think for me, he just needs to tighten up his technique a little bit again, really look at it, and just play off that and just simplify things a little bit. I think I feel like he just overthinks it and he really wants to hit the ball as hard as possible. And what it does is he loses the timing, the natural timing that he has. He's a natural timer with the ball, but he just almost doesn't want to play like that. And that's why a lot of people say he is ugly to watch, and he's effective but ugly to watch. And it's funny because a couple of years back, I don't think people would be saying that. I mean, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, but nowadays you would. And in fact, I think a few years back, you'd be saying Bairstow was ugly to watch, and Jason Roy was the guy who's good to watch. Today, or in the ODI anyway, the first ODI, it was the other way around. Bairstow looked fantastic to watch. Roy, not so much. And Bairstow, I think, again, as I said, has simplified his game slightly. He's not kind of clearing the front foot as much as he usually would. Sometimes he will when he's trying to play down the ground. That's fine. But on the whole, he knows his game. He plays to his strengths, and he knows my arc is between mid-off and fine leg, and I'm going to utilize that arc. And you know what? I'm gonna make sure that I'm hitting with calculated aggression. At times, he did look a bit ugly. He didn't quite get the whole ball, but it was very clever cricket the way that he was trying to play. And himself and Jason Roy, the one thing they did really well is that the two debutants in Krunal Prasidh and Prasidh Krishna, they put them under pressure straight away. So both these guys, their first spells were super expensive. They didn't let them settle, and they just said, you know what, we're going to blow you away. You're not good enough to bowl against us, basically. And they played on that brash nature, and it worked. So they set this ridiculous platform, as I just said, 135 for 1 off after 14.2 overs were England. I'll touch upon Johnny Bairstow because the way he got out was really disappointing for me. But, you know, look, it's really hard to blame someone who's just got 94. I mean, he was the best batsman on display, as I said. Unbelievable knock. 7 sixes, 6 fours. And he just looked in this ridiculous nick. Some of the sixes he hit just looked absolutely effortless. And he tore apart Kuldeep Yadav, all the spinners, just everyone. I think the only bowler really that those two respected was Bhuvneshwar Kumar, and that was it. Everyone else, they just completely tore apart, and probably rightly so. Ben Stokes came in after Jason Roy went. Jason Roy going to Prasidh Krishna, actually. Just, again, this is a ball that's come into him, cramped him slightly, and he's gone to drive it on the up towards the offside, and it's not the right shot to play. He should be defending even. Kind of outside edges it straight to point. It's a very tame dismissal. He's just disappointing, and he's someone who, for some reason, Jason Roy just does not want to get 50. He's got 440 so far on this tour, and it's almost like Nah, 50? Nah, I don't want that. I'll stick with 40. And I'm like, what? No 50 plus scores for him, apparently. It's almost like he's allergic, but he'll be disappointed, I'm sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does tighten up a little bit and goes big in one of the other two ODIs. But look, he batted quite well, but still things to work on, I think. And there's some worrying signs that this is a very flat deck, so I think he got away with it at times. Ben Stokes, 1 off 11. I mean, the experiment just did not work, did it? Moving him up to 3, and it just did not work. I mean, he just looked completely just bogged down. 1 off 11, couldn't hit the ball off the square. It was almost like, I mean, he bowled really well, right? In the first innings, what was it? 8 overs for 34 runs, 3 wickets, economy of 4.25, alongside Sam Curran, 10 overs, 48 runs, 4.8. Those two were the standouts, really. But he just couldn't put it together with the bat. And I don't want to be too harsh on him because, again, he bowled really well. But if you look at his batting, and everyone's talking about he should be opening the T20s, or, he should be higher up, we're going to utilize him. That's all well and good, but he still hasn't scored a 50 in T20s, which to me is a bit of like, whoa, what? And yes, he had a fantastic World Cup. He seems like one of these big match players, but I almost don't want him to be an Andrew Flintoff, who was such a phenomenal player, but someone who, when you look back at him, his stats, yeah, they're good, but they're not phenomenal. And he had these phenomenal moments, like Flintoff would have phenomenal moments in the Ashes or wherever else, right? Especially the Ashes. But in other tournaments, he just didn't quite do it. Ben Stokes has done it in the World Cup, done it in Ashes. He clearly is a player of immense talent. And when it matters, fine. But I'd like to see him kind of work on that consistency, because the issue might be that if he doesn't have that consistency, when it does come to big moments, he might not be able to reproduce it straight away. And I think that's something that he needs to work on. I think as well his T20 cricket needs to vastly improve. Does he need to be moved up the order? Who knows? That's another topic and another discussion for another day. But here he disappointed, moved up to 3, was given the reins, right? I mean, he came in after 14.2 overs. So he's got loads of time. And he was really taking his time, which is fine, but not if you're going to get out of the way he did, which was a really tame drive straight to short cover, unfortunately, and another wicket for Prasidh Krishna as well. Okay, let's get through this. So Owen Morgan, I mean, really, after Bairstow went, which was 169 for 3 off 22.1 overs. So after that 22nd over, after Bairstow went, it was the beginning of the end for England. The collapse was just, oh, mate, it was like dominoes. England's batsmen just lacked composure, lacked application, and it just completely exposed a middle to lower order deficiency that England have had throughout this whole tour. In the test matches, they had it. In the T20s, they showed it twice. When the openers in Roy and Butler got runs in the T20s, they're chasing 180 in one of the T20s, and they completely collapsed after having a fantastic platform laid by the openers. Similarly, they did it with the 225. The openers put on a fantastic partnership, bang, collapse. Okay, I can kind of understand the 225. It's a huge total. This time, I cannot understand it, because they've laid this platform, which is, we're way ahead of the run rate. We've got loads of wickets in hand. Here we go. All you have to do is just keep it ticking along, rotate a strike, right? Keep it going, take it deep, we'll win this. Owen Morgan, 22 of 30. He looked pretty decent whilst he was in. Okay? He looked okay. But what really annoys me is he got out to a short ball, which is something that he should have sorted out by now. It was a decent short ball. It was 140 Ks, fine. But it's a flat deck, and he's top edged it straight to the keeper. And it's almost like his eyes are shut whilst he's playing it. And for me, it's something that is a bit worrying. His form has been pretty bad, I think, since the 2019 World Cup as well, because just looking at it, it's really, really worrying. Like, his form in ODIs has been really, really poor. I think he scored 100 last year. That was it, no 50s at all. Looking at his stats from last year, it's not, and I think the 100 was against Ireland as well. Like, no offense to Ireland, but it kind of doesn't have as much bearing, I don't think, as against playing Australia, where he scored some runs but not many. Similarly, Josh Butler, I mean, very briefly, I want to talk about this from a technical point of view, because I feel like I know what's going on with him at times. He is someone who is supremely talented, but he disappointed as well, 2 or 4. And if you notice, sometimes he'll play a shot and his head is almost like it's like cocked almost to one side whilst he's playing it, and it's very very unorthodox, right? But it works for him. And to be honest, that doesn't matter, right? If your head's like this, as long as it's still. But the issue that I have is that sometimes it's cocked so much whilst he's playing a shot, or whilst he's kind of going into the ball, that his weight goes with his head, if that makes sense. And so then he falls over his front pad, or he goes offside of the ball. And what happens is then of course he'll get trapped WW, as he did, and he has done on a few occasions in this white ball series, and also I think in the test match that he did play as well, if I'm not mistaken. He either gets trapped WW or gets cleaned up through the gate, and it's probably that inducker that will do him. Takor got him with pretty much a straightest delivery, really. He doesn't particularly bowl an in swing. It was just a kind of natural variation. He bowls mainly away swingers, and then he'll have the one that's straighter with the arm. And he just fell over his front pad and trapped LBW. It was umpire's call, slightly unlucky. I at first thought it probably missed, but I thought actually it's probably just clipping, and the umpire giving it out. But that obviously didn't help the cause. Then on top of that, Sam Billings and Moeen Ali were in. They're both very rusty. Sam Billings also had injured his shoulder. He was pretty good whilst he was in, 18 off 22. But again, a very, very soft dismissal. Exactly the same as Ben Stokes. Just think of Ben Stokes' dismissal, but a mirror image, because they're left hand, right hand. Again, it's a length delivery on off stump, and Sam Billings has just driven it on the up straight to the fielder at cover. And you're just thinking, what is going on? But I can kind of understand him, because he is someone who hasn't played any cricket for a very long time. Ben Stokes has been, so there's no excuse for me. But another soft dismissal. Moeen Ali got an absolute beauty from Bhuvneshwar Kumar. He looked okay whilst he was in 30 or 37. He is my boy, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. He could have done better. I think he was shaking his head after, and he'll be disappointed because I think he looked quite good whilst he was in 30 or 37, 2 fours and a 6. And Bhuvneshwar Kumar just bowled this absolute beauty that just kind of shaped in a little bit to left-hander from over the wicket, then pitched and just seamed away. And Moeen Ali just nicked off. I could only just feather it just behind, and it was just an absolute cracker. It really was. And Bhuvneshwar Kumar bowled just beautifully throughout, to be fair, and has been throughout the whole tour and all the matches he's been playing. Sam Curran, 12 off 20, he really epitomised for me England's just hapless batting towards the end. I mean, he was batting with Moeen Ali, and I was just thinking to myself, these two need to be rotating the strike. Now, I can't really say for Moeen Ali because he hardly faced any balls, but Sam Curran was eating up deliveries and not rotating the strike. He hit one good shot, which was a pull shot, fine, but he just was struggling to get the ball into gaps to run singles, run twos, and you think that England have been work on this constantly, but unfortunately, he just wasn't able to do it. And it was really, really disappointing to see. And then I was thinking to myself, okay, fine. He's taking his time, 12-20. I was thinking it's fine. You know, Moeen Ali got out, and I'm thinking, well, Sam Curran, he's eaten up a lot of deliveries. Doesn't matter. He's probably got his iron. He'll just, now he'll start to rotate the strike with his brother Tom, and he'll be fine. What does he do? He does the complete opposite. I mean, Krunal Prasidh comes on, and he just tries to smash him over his head for 6 instead of rotating the strike. And you're just thinking, what in the world are you doing? Genuinely, what in the world are you doing? Because I'm just thinking, this is not the IPL, right? At that point, by the way, they're still at a good rate because the openers have just laid such a good platform. All people need to do is stay in and rotate the strike. But no. Why do that when we can just be completely stupid and try and blast the ball out of the park for no apparent reason when you're 7 wickets down, right? You're 7 wickets down and you've got other Rashid and Mark Woods come in, but why not take that risk? And I'm just thinking that's so mindless. And he's very young, Sam Curran, so I don't want to be too harsh on him, but it was just that epitomised really the middle to low order for England, and it has done throughout most of this tour. Tom Curran, 11 off 16, looked okay, but then again, just it's getting out from Prasidh Krishna again, just kind of looping up in the air. And Adil Rashid, 0 off 5, got a good ball from Butler and you can't really expect him to get any runs. Anyways, Mark Wood, 2 not out. He'll be happy. Little red inker for him. But they got skittled, England, for 2-5-1. Skittled for 2-5-1. And the reason why I'm ranting is because this was an absolutely epic collapse from England. I mean, they lost, 10 wickets in the space of 116 runs. That's just ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy. Skittled for 2-5-1, and they had 7 and a bit overs left. The run rate was just under 6, by the way. So they could have easily done it if they just stayed in. But some of the shots played just poor. Some soft dismissals. A couple of them were very, very good balls. I mean, look, Moynihan got a very good ball. Owen Morgan, look, if I don't want to be too harsh, fine, he got maybe a decent ball. Ben Stokes soft. Josh Butler soft. Sam Billings soft. Sam Curran soft. Tom Curran soft. So, yeah, India's bowlers did come back very well. It has to be said, and I think they created pressure, which does lead to soft dismissals. And that's what I'm going to talk about now, because I mentioned that Prasidh Krishna and Krunal Prasidh got absolutely slapped, right? They did. And it wasn't just them. It was Kuldeep Yadav and Shardul Thakur. In the first spells of each of those bowlers, they got slapped. The only person that England respected was Bhuvneshwar Kumar. 9 overs, 30 runs, 2 wickets, economy of 3.33. He bowled, really, really well. And as he's done throughout the whole tour, he just swings the ball both ways with such control. It's great to watch. It really is. Prasidh Krishna, as I said he's got wheels. He does have wheels. He got slapped though. His line length was a bit off, and he was under pressure after Johnny Bairstow and Jason Roy went after him straight away. He came back really well. I mean, got picked up 4 wickets and some vital wickets. Shardul Thakur the same, 6 overs for 37, 3 wickets for him, economy of 6.17, and so did Krunal Prasidh. I mean, he got absolutely destroyed in his first 2-3 overs. He came back with 10 overs for only 59 runs, 1 wicket. Again, it's just very, very good, strong mental fortitude from India, whereas England showed the complete opposite in this match. And Kuldeep Yadav, 9 overs, 68 runs for 7.56. He was the only one that he just continually got slapped, really. And it was pretty disappointing to see because he's come back in and got a chance again. I'm assuming he will play more, but he's too loose. You know that. He's just very, very loose. And I don't know what it is. He's probably a bit lacking in confidence as well because, as I said, he's not really starting on anything even for his domestic side. So that will definitely be playing on his mind. Let's see how he does. I'm assuming he'll play at maybe 1 more at least. But let's see. On the other front, I mean, look at Mark Wood, Ardal Rashid, Moeen Ali, Tom Curran. They bowled okay, but Sam Curran and Ben Stokes bowled really, really well on the England front. And the one thing I'll say is that this track was very, very slow. Very, very flat even. And the spinners didn't really have much. Seamers didn't have much. But one thing that maybe England didn't take into account, which I was a bit surprised about, was they didn't take into account the fact that under the lights, the white ball probably do a bit more. And the white ball did do a bit more because it swung a bit more and it seemed off the surface a bit more under the lights. And that could also be because the surface was a bit more worn. But the Indian seamers definitely got the ball to do more than the England seamers. 100%, and the lights would have played a small factor at least in that. But I think the decision was right from England because of their batting lineup they had. So I think it kind of outweighs that. It was just a lack of application, unfortunately. Very, very good win, though, from India. And I think it's the second heaviest defeat that England have incurred since 2015. Says a lot, right? I mean, India won it by 66 runs. Very comprehensive victory. I mean, in the context of the year, it doesn't really mean too much because it's a T20 World Cup year. But I think England will be looking at thinking, we're World Cup champions. We need to come back into this. And yes, we're missing some big players, opening bowlers, etc. But we've still got good strength and depth. And as I said, India are missing Bumrah and Jadeja. They're big players as well. So there's no really excuses for England. They just need to come back and do better. And that's just the be-all and end-all of it, unfortunately. Hopefully we get a more competitive match for the second ODI because this one, again, it wasn't really super competitive, I'm being perfectly honest with you. I think there's only been one match, which was one of the T20s, which was competitive, went down to the last over or two. every other match, Test matches and T20s, were all pretty one-sided, including this one, which in the end was very one-sided. I mean, it looked exciting up until maybe Morgan got out, and then I'm thinking, you know what, this I just don't have any faith in the rest of them, because I mean, Billings and Moyne are very rusty as well, and might be able to rely on them, but probably not in this one. Okay, thank you very much, guys, for listening, and apologies for that. But it's just really frustrating to watch, especially when you're watching it live. You're like, what is this? But very, very good victory for India. Very good stuff. And as I said, they just seem to find all these amazing batsmen out of the woodwork. I know a lot of them do come from the IPL, etc., or from the Vijay Hazard Trophy. I know Krunal Prasidh averages like 111, I think. So, yeah, I mean, he's obviously a very damn good player. So interesting to see how they make up their team for the next one. And it just shows the amount of strength and depth India have got, and in England do as well. But I think they need to be more clever and savvy in the way they play and their lineup as well. Okay, thank you very much, guys, for watching. Please do remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really do appreciate it. And, of course, share the videos. And I'll see you on the next, hopefully, the second ODI. We'll be doing a live stream as well on the Friday, so stay tuned for that. And if anyone is interested, I also did an interview with Hayden Walsh Jr., West Indian cricketer and leg spinner, and also CPL winner in 2019 and MVP. And I've got a load of others as well, so go check them out if you're interested as well. Perfect. Thank you very much, guys. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you very much.